May it please the court, my name is Rana Balikas, co-counsel for the prosecution. So, Your Excellencies, my learned today has already discussed with you the following submissions. First is that accused Colonel Joy is guilty of war crime of unlawful confinement. The second is that the accused Colonel Joy is guilty of willful killing. So I shall now discuss to you our third submission. That is, accused Joy is guilty of war crime of excessive damage in proportion to military advantage. So there were two instances wherein this war crime was committed, such as the use of shelling barrage and cluster ammunition. So, in the current case, all elements of war crime under the International Criminal Court of excessive incidental death, injury, or damage are present. So to first discuss the first element, is that the perpetrator launched an attack. So it is evident, first, in the incident where it happened in Camp C, wherein Colonel Joy was running after the column which belonged to the outline. And in such event, it is where Colonel Joy ordered the launching of the use of shelling barrage, wherein in such incident, many refugees are affected or were injured or killed. Also, may I invite Your Excellencies to please see paragraph 2.25 to 2.27. Wherein, in this incident, the attempt to control gateway. In this incident, also, it exhibited that the accused Colonel Joy used such military tactic, which is quite excessive and which can cause unnecessary injuries to people involved in that area.
But in every arm, it will always be collateral damage.
Yes.
So, would you agree that it would be a fact that in every armed conflict there will always be collateral damage?
Yes, Your Excellencies, I agree that in every attack there is some collateral damage. However, in every attack, it should be decisive to the one who is in charge that such an attack will not cause such excessive damage. Especially if the superior or the one in charge knows that in such area there are civilians living around. So, as stated in the case of the facts, in paragraph 2.27, it is quite evident that Colonel Joy, the accused, is aware that there are civilians living around said factories. And also, the said factories was used by Colonel Joy, the accused, as a military tactic, a target in which they were aiming to form a chemical cloud. So despite the knowledge that there are civilians around the area, it was an indiscriminate attack for them to use such, knowing that it is evident that such attack would cause excessive damage around the area, especially the civilians. Your Excellencies, may I now proceed to the second element. So the second element, the attack was such that it would cause incidental death or injury to civilians or damage to civilian objects or widespread, long-term, and severe damage to the natural environment, and that such death, injury, or damage would be of such an extent as to be clearly excessive in relation to the concrete and direct overall military advantage anticipated. So, as I was stating earlier, their tactic of targeting the chemical factory is indeed excessive. Knowing that it is part of their tactic to form a chemical cloud, it is quite evident that such tactic can cause death or injury or damage to the people around that area. Also, in the principle of discrimination, any attack directed by a military should be decisive that they should be able to identify civilians and non-civilians. In such case, they were not able to, it was clearly an indiscriminate attack, knowing that there are civilians aside from civilians, although there are also combatants in that area. Yet,
are you aware of this principle of distinction?
yes,
Between civilians
yes, Your Excellency.
as well as law and proportionality and principle of limitation.
So, in Your Excellency, about the principle of proportionality. So, in that principle, it should be upheld by the one who is in target or who the one
In launching the attack,
in launching it.
you are the commander, being in our control of the situation. You take your process. You have to observe the situation. So what is that? Principle of limitation.
The principle of proportionality, if you are the commander, you should take into account that the mere presence of civilians in that area would jeopardize such attack, that to the account that it would make you a superior liable. Even a few number of civilians present there, the fact that civilians are protected as a superior, you should not recourse to an attack that can cause an indiscriminate effect.
I think the principle of proportionality, the attack should be done proportionally to the situation. There should be no attack that would cause excessive damage to or long-term suffering. I think that we have to discuss.
Your Excellency is for we have also there are limitations on the means and methods of warfare. So it is clearly stated that the means and methods of warfare should not be unlimited. It is clear that in the case of war, they use shelling barrage and cluster munitions. Also, it is prohibited to employ weapons, projectiles, and materials and methods of warfare of a nature to cause superfluous injury or unnecessary suffering. In the case where in the chemical factory, it was also stated in the facts of the case that after the attack, there are also incidents wherein 25 people, including children, are maimed by unexploded ordnance. And also, aside from that, due to the chemical cloud that were formed during the attack, many were suffered from respiratory injuries or skin injuries. Your Excellencies, may I proceed to my third? The next is that the perpetrator knew that such attack was excessive and that the conduct took place in the context of and was associated with an international armed conflict. So it is clear and established by my co-counsel that it is the accused Capt Joy who is in command of the attack and that he is aware, he is one of those who commanded or ordered such attack. So Your Excellencies, I see that I am short of time, so I would like to briefly explain my final submission. Okay, I will read. So, as to my final submission, we submit that the accused Capt Joy is guilty of a war crime of excessive incidental death, injury, or damage. And all elements are present in our submission, and that indeed accused Capt Joy is the one liable for such attack that caused unnecessary harm to the civilian population. If your excellencies have no further questions, I shall cede the podium to my co-counsel.
Counsel, I have one last question. So you said that that military attacks must be decisive. So the attack was carried out by the baseline military on April 22, 2009. Was for the intention to slow down the advancing military forces in the Afghan state. So would you consider that attack as a decisive attack?
No. Your Excellency, I consider that as it is not a decisive attack because they resorted to such an attack that could clearly cause, it was quite evident to them, and they were quite aware that such attack targeting the chemical factory, they were at the aim of forming a chemical cloud. And it is quite evident that they also know that there are civilians around that factory.
Thank you, Counsel.
I thank this court for its time and indulgence. May it please the court.